Thank you for joining me on my learning journey. Today I'm going to be sharing my learnings on how to create a Blackout Poetry tool. So if you've never seen Blackout Poetry before, it's basically where you take a piece of longer text, like a newspaper article or an essay or something, and you black out certain words until there are only a certain amount of words remaining, and you use those words to create poetry and to write poetry. So um, I'm going to be showing you how to make an online tool for Blackout Poetry, where you can enter the words in and then it will create a clickable selection of text where you can click and black out different words. So this is my first time doing a full-length guided project tutorial, so I'm super excited, and I know you're super excited even though I can't see you. I don't even need to see your face to know that you're super excited. And so I'll really appreciate it if you leave any comments or feedback below, again, since this is my first time doing this. So what I'm going to do first is create the HTML form elements to allow users to input what words they want to put in and then generate the clickable area of text. So I'm going to make a text area, and the ID is going to be words. I'm going to make it max length of maybe 4,000 characters. And you can set the max length to whatever you want to put. And then I am also going to create a label for that, label for words. And here you can type what you want the label to be for that. So I am going to say that it is, I'm just going to say enter your text here, maximum of 4,000 characters. And so for our text area, I am also going to add the rows to be, let's just say 10, and the columns to be 50. And I'm not going to worry about styling these elements right now, and because I want that to, I'm going to break this tutorial into different sections, and first we're going to start with the HTML work of it, and then we're going to move on to the JavaScript, and then finally finish off with some CSS styling. But what I am going to do is I'm going to add some instructions here, of course. I'm going to say instructions, enter text in the box below and click submit. Then click on the words that show up to black them out or return to default. And so that's kind of a sneak peek of all the things we're going to be able to do. So they're going to be able to toggle between blacked out and not blacked out. So I'm going to create a button that says, I'm going to make it a submit button, and then I'm also going to make the text area required. Button type equals submit. And it is going to say submit. Its ID is going to be, you guessed it, submit. Submit. And I'm going to make this text to be enter and start clicking. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a div that says, going to make it blackout, and this is going to be where the series of divs are. We're going to use spans actually, because those have inline text to create those individual things that'll change the background color when clicked. So basically the logic behind what we're doing here is they're going to input the words that they want, and then we're going to split that string into several different strings for each word based on where the spaces are. And so that's how we are going to do it, and it'll return an array. And then for each element, we're going to create a for loop. For each element in that, we're going to create a different span. And then we're going to add an event listener for when it's clicked. And so when it's clicked, it'll change the background color. So that's just a sneak peek of what we are going to do. So now let's go to script and let's start doing some JavaScript. So what we're going to do now is we are going to add an event listener for the submit button. So we're going to say document.getElementById submit. Submit dot add event listener click function and so our first step here is to split the longer text into different words, into different strings. So the way we're going to do that is document.getElementById words dot value dot split, and we are going to split it by the space. And now I am going to just also define another variable just to make my life easier so I don't keep having to type the same thing over and over. So I'm going to define the variable blackout for this document.getElementById blackout so I don't have to keep typing this. But we will come back to that later. You may still be wondering why we need that empty div, and that's because it's no longer going to be empty after some time. So our first thing to do before creating our loop is to clear the previous selections, because we are going to be creating elements inside the blackout div. So we're going to say while blackout dot has child nodes, we are going to say blackout dot remove child blackout dot last child. And now we are ready to create our loop that will create the elements. And so I'm going to be creating a for each loop. I'm going to go words split. Okay, word split dot for each. I'm going to say I, and we are going to create a function for that loop that will be executed for each element. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to define const span to be document.createElement, and we are going to create a span. So I am also going to append this to blackout. So I'm going to say blackout.append child span. But now I want to actually make the span say something and have certain properties. So I'm going to say span.innerText is equal to I, which is the variable for the element, plus a space, because we removed the spaces earlier, but we want these spaces to be shown so that it is like the text that they entered. And so that will be the inner text, and we're also going to add an event listener for each of the spans so that when we click them, the background color will change. So span.addEventListener click function. So in the function, we are going to say if span.className is not equal to blacked out and they click on it, then span.style.background color should now be equal to black. And so what we're doing here is we are going to toggle the elements based on, toggle the class name to toggle the background color. So on click, if the span is not blacked out already, and they click on it, now it is going to become blacked out, and the span.class name is going to change to blacked out. Blacked out. Else span.style.background color is equal to FFFFFF, which is white. That is the hex code for white. And span.className will be equal to nothing. And so that is how we are going to do the JavaScript for this. And so it is going to add this event listener to the element when the submit button is clicked, so that now anytime when you click span, this is what will happen. So we are going to move off from our IDE for a moment and actually test out this code and preview what it looks like. And then we're going to get into CSS styling. So as you can see, it doesn't look very pretty right now, and that's why we're going to be using CSS in a minute here to make it look a lot more pretty than it does. So anyway, we are going to add some random text. I don't know what text to add, so I'm just going to add that. And I'm going to say enter and start clicking. And so as you can see, it shows up and we can start clicking and blacking things out. So now let's see if our white background thing works. And it does. So let's go back and make this look a little more pretty. So what I'm going to do is, first things first, I'm going to just make the text align, look good by saying center, center. And I'm also going to add some breaks actually, and that'll be HTML. But adding some breaks will also add a nice look to it. Break. And I am also going to maybe change the color of this button, background color to be honeydew, and I'm also going to change the border radius. I'm going to change the border radius to be 15 px, and that's going to make these nice like rounded borders. And then what I'm also going to do is add some more padding on either side. And so these are all things that you can change to really make this your own. And so I'm just going to be doing some simple stuff here. So let's take a look back at our thing. And so these are all things that you can change just based on your personal preference. I'm going to add another break here and just edit the font family and the font size medium, font family. And so let's take a look back at our Blackout Poetry tool now. So we are back here at our tool, and You could do more styling for this, like make this show up in the center and things like that. I just wanted to make it simple. And so I have copied and pasted some lorem ipsum text, and I am going to try this thing out. And so as you can see, we can now do blackout poetry. So that previous method works, but we want our code to be as easy to use on the user side as possible. So clicking all of those different elements for really large amounts of text is going to be really difficult and tedious. So how do we make it so that they can just click the ones that they don't want to be blacked out? That's what I'm going to be helping you with now. So the way we're going to do that is by making all of them by default have a span.className when they're created that says default. And then once they are selected and clicked, we're going to say that their class name is now selected. And we're also going to change in the conditional to be selected for when they click on it. And when it is selected, just to make it clear that they have selected it, we're going to make a border around it. And we're going to make a dotted border, and it's going to be black. So basically, we're not going to be making it black out when you click it. We're going to make it black out after. And that's why I have created this button here earlier that says black the remaining text out. So once they click on, we're going to create an event listener for that in a moment here. But first, let's finish this part of our previous event listener. So this is if it's not equal to selected, but what if it is equal to selected and they're trying to unselect it? Then we'll say span.borderStyle equals none. So the border style is equal to none, and we're also going to add a class name that'll revert it back to the default. So for example, when you've already clicked something and you unclick it, it'll go back to the default. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to create our event listener for our black the remaining text out. And it's going to be a click event listener, and we are going to write our function. So when they click that they want to black out all of the remaining text, we have to make sure that all the ones where the class name is default are blacked out. So for that, we're going to say var default, or sorry, where all of them are default. So where all of the class names are default. I forgot what I said, sorry. So var not selected equals document dot query selector all, and we're going to say dot default. Again, we are going to create a loop here for each, and in this we are going to say that now i.style.display, or not display, sorry, background color will equal black. And so what we're also going to do is we're going to make span.style.background color, and this, background color to be equal to white. And the reason why we're doing that is because we're going to use the same class name here. We're going to make i.className to now equal selected. And why are we doing that? Because now when they click on it a second time, it'll trigger this part of the conditional. And the color will become white. So we're going to try this out right here and see how our code is working out. And so now the way it works is they can enter their text in and select certain words. They can black out the remaining text. And then if they want to return one of the blacked out text to their poem, they can select it once just to have it there, or they can select it twice, and that'll actually make it selected for blacking out the remaining text. So I hope you enjoyed creating that Blackout Poetry tool. I know I did. And I also hope you get a chance to really explore writing some Blackout Poetry with your new tool and really being able to sit back and think, wow, I created the tool to make this and I created some really awesome poetry. So that's it for this learning. Thank you for joining me. I'll really appreciate it if you leave your comments, feedback, and further suggestions for additional learnings below. I'll see you in the next video.